Let's talk about this with ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. He is also a member of the Financial Services Committee. What are your thoughts on this? Does this seem like a reasonable offer? And do you have any expectations that Republicans, when we understand, will be taking to the bottom of the hour in about 45 minutes and have a conference to go over what has been offered, that's something they'll accept and reopen this government?
Yeah, well, I sure hope so. Set aside the Democrat-Republican negotiation. And by the way, I'm glad that there's a negotiation going on. An offer has been made, and now you just heard the Democrats make a counteroffer. This is how we govern in this country. But let's set aside the politics for a second. 3 days ago, I visited a couple in my town of Ridgefield, Connecticut, who got their premium price for next year, health insurance premium. Mm-hmm. It went from $900 to $4,000. And that is not unusual. And by the way, that's more true in red states than in blue states. This is happening everywhere. So this should be a layup for my Republican friends, because if you want to think about it politically, a family that has just seen a quadrupling of their health care insurance premiums is going to be mad as a hornet. And the Republicans now have an opportunity to solve that problem for them. Remember, they've got the presidency, the Senate, and the House, and reopen the government. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Take this deal. We're not asking for something radical here. We're asking for something that will, help an awful lot of Republican constituents.
And establish a bipartisan negotiations there to go through what would happen this time next year. What do you think would be the Republican argument to not accepting it when, in fact, we had the president himself looking at the very difficult elections held this week across this country, in certain states, of course, where, Republicans got shellacked. And the president said a lot of it is because of this government shutdown.
Can you imagine that? Alex, for the last 9 months, we've been pointing out that Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate won't do anything unless Donald Trump tells them to. Well, he just told them to do this, right? He just said, we got beaten because of the shutdown. And the president has made other comments which would lead you to believe that he understands how very serious this healthcare issue is for so many Americans. So if the Republicans in the House and the Senate say, not only are we not going to deliver food stamps, we already showed that we don't care if you go hungry, but the president has told us to reopen the government and to try to fix for this health insurance problem. And we're going to say no? Really? Your own guy told you to do this, and you're saying no, and the effect will be to keep people hungry and to keep them without health insurance and to damage our aviation and to make sure that TSA agents don't get paid? I just don't know how you begin to justify that to the American people.
Look, we know that the Republicans might find a way, right? If the president doesn't tell them to do it, they may not do it. So if that happens, is there a point where it gets to be just too much for Democrats? Can you stick to your guns too much? Is there a threshold of pain which Democrats cannot envision crossing?
Well, I will tell you this, which is that, of course, there's a threshold of pain, and it's already been wildly exceeded because people are going hungry, because people are getting absolute sticker shock about their health insurance premiums, because aviation is about to get shut down in substantial measure in, whatever it is, the most busy airports in the country as we go into Thanksgiving. The president has said, do this. The Republicans have a golden opportunity. Literally 48 hours after they got shellacked, to use your word, they got shellacked because of affordability, right? This is what Mamdani was saying in New York, what Abigail Spanberger was saying in Virginia, affordability, affordability. And now they're going to say, we've got an offer which will help on affordability. And our answer is no. That's inconceivable. That is just politically inconceivable. So, look, what they need to do right now is not just do the right thing, but do the smart thing for their own party, which took a huge drubbing 48 hours ago.
I do want to ask you about what happened in Wednesday's classified briefing relative to the military action in the Caribbean and the Pacific. You had Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Hegseth talking about the U.S. military campaign there in the Southern Hemisphere. My question to you, sir, did you hear or see any irrefutable proof that the targets of these strikes, in fact, do pose the drug-running threat that the Trump administration has claimed throughout, without telling us publicly, indeed, that's the case?
Well, let me answer that question in two ways. On the one hand, roughly 90,000 overdose deaths in the United States every year. The vast majority of those overdoses are fentanyl. The American public understands that. These boats that are being blown up are carrying cocaine. Now, cocaine is not a good thing, but if you're serious about addressing the violent threat, if you want to think of it that way, of overdoses in this country, you're not blowing up boats with cocaine. You're using those resources and assets and time and talent to stop the flow of fentanyl, which is not what is happening here. Now, if the question is, and remember, I spent a lot of time with our intelligence community. If the question is it likely that these boats, in fact, are carrying cocaine? I will tell you, yes, it is very likely. Now, I haven't seen enough information to be able to tell you that we're also absolutely certain that everybody on these boats is a drug dealer. There could be family members of drug dealers. There could be, women and children. There could be human cargo for human trafficking. I'm not prepared to say that we're doing a good enough job to assure that that is not the case. But again, our intelligence community is pretty good. So, I think it's going to turn out that these strikes, by and large, were boats carrying cocaine, which, if I can go back to what I just said, is not what is creating the huge lethality in the United States.
So the reporting that we have seen, sir, from the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, that the president is considering strikes inside Venezuela, potentially even targeting the security detail of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as a tactic for removing him. And this is all, again, allegedly because of fentanyl, which they say is being created and exported from there, although there's no proof that Venezuela actually is a source of fentanyl production. That said, are you supportive of this?
Well, Alex, let's be clear about this. There is no fentanyl production in Venezuela. Anybody who's telling you that is lying to you. What comes out of the Andean countries, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, and Ecuador, is cocaine. Now, cocaine is not a good thing, but it is absolutely not fentanyl. So, no, that is not true. Now, you ask an interesting question that I can answer to some extent, right? Remember, these boat strikes were happening for what now? 7 weeks before the administration decided that they would give any briefings to Congress. So I'm not going to tell you that I've gotten the kinds of briefings that any administration should give to the Congress, given the seriousness of this. But based on what I have heard, no, I do not believe that these operations, these boat strikes, the presence of our military assets in the Caribbean are about going after either Maduro or the state of Venezuela. And I would point out that they're saying, and I don't agree with them on this, by the way, but they're saying these strikes are legal because they're being done in international waters. I don't happen to agree that they're legal strikes, but they are also acknowledging that actual attacks on the land of Venezuela or the government of Venezuela would require a whole other approval or legal process.
Okay. Democratic Congressman of Connecticut, Jim Himes, thank you so much for your time. It's good to talk with you.